There are things men are trained to hide. Pain, fear, confusion, doubt. But the one thing we hide best: tears. Not because we don't feel them, because we're terrified of what happens if someone sees them. I was 43 the first time my son saw me cry. And it didn't happen at a funeral, or during a tragedy, or in some dramatic, cinematic breakdown. It happened on a Thursday afternoon in my driveway, and I didn't know he was watching. The day started normally. Emails, coffee, traffic, deadlines. By 3:15 p.m., I was sitting in my truck outside my office building, gripping the steering wheel harder than I needed to. I had just walked out of a restructuring conversation. That's corporate language for, "You're valuable, just not valuable enough." 15 years of the company. Promotions. Overtime. Weekends sacrificed. And in under 12 minutes, a man 10 years younger than me explained how my role was being reimagined. I wasn't fired. That would have been cleaner. I was repositioned. Lower authority. Smaller team. Same salary, for now. A slow demotion disguised as strategy. And the worst part? I saw it coming. I just convinced myself loyalty still mattered. I sat in that parking lot for 20 minutes. I didn't call my wife. Didn't call a friend. Didn't even curse. I just stared at the dashboard and felt something cave inward. Not my ego. My identity. I had built my sense of worth around being competent, respected, needed. And suddenly, I wasn't essential. Just replaceable. Men don't talk about that. We talk about layoffs. We don't talk about humiliation. By the time I pulled into the driveway, I had composed my face. Neutral. Controlled. Unbothered. My son, Ethan, was outside shooting hoops. 13 years old. All limbs and attitude. Headphones in. Living in that strange space between boy and man. He glanced at me. "Hey, Dad." "Hey." I forced a smile. "How was school?" "Fine." That word again. Fine. The most dishonest word in the English language. I went inside. My wife, Megan, was in the kitchen. "You're early," she said. "Slow afternoon," I replied. Lie number one. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did and chose not to push. That's the thing about long marriages. You learn when to dig and when to let someone breathe. I went upstairs, closed the bedroom door, and sat on the edge of the bed. And that's when it hit me. The weight. The shame. The fear I didn't want to name. What if this is the beginning of the slide? What if I'm already past my prime? What if my best years are behind me, and I didn't even notice? That's not a thought men say out loud. Because once you say it, it becomes real. I bent forward, elbows on knees, staring at the carpet. And for the first time in years, I didn't try to push it down. I let it rise. The tightness in my throat, the pressure behind my eyes, the trembling breath. It wasn't dramatic sobbing. It was quiet, contained, but real. And then it broke. A single tear at first, then another. Not loud, not violent, just steady, like something inside me had finally stopped pretending to be invincible. I wasn't crying about the job. I was crying about what it represented. Aging, irrelevance, the fear of not being enough anymore. The fear that my son would someday look at me and see a man who peaked early. And that's when I heard it. A soft knock. I froze. "Dad." Ethan's voice. My chest tightened. "Yeah." I answered, trying to steady my tone. The door creaked, opened slightly. He stood there, basketball still tucked under his arm. He looked at me, and he saw it. I didn't have time to hide it. Didn't have time to wipe my face. Our eyes locked. For a split second, I saw confusion in his. Then concern. Then something else. Recognition. "You okay?" he asked. Simple question. The kind I'd asked him 100 times. And every time he'd said, "I'm fine." I had a choice in that moment. Lie. Or be honest. Every instinct screamed, protect him from this. Protect your image. Don't let him see weakness. Because somewhere along the way, I learned that a father's job is to be solid. Unshakable. The anchor. Anchors don't cry. But I was so tired of pretending. So I said the scariest thing a man can say. No. The word hung in the air. Raw. Unpolished. True. He stepped inside the room and closed the door behind him. He didn't laugh. Didn't look uncomfortable. Didn't retreat. He just stood there. "What happened?" he asked quietly. I swallowed. I had a rough day at work. That's it. I almost smiled. The innocence in that question. That's it, I said. But we both knew it wasn't. He sat down next to me on the bed. We didn't look at each other for a moment. Just sat, side by side. And I realized something terrifying. My son had probably never seen a grown man cry before. Not in real life. Not up close. What was I teaching him right now? Strength through silence. Or strength through honesty? I didn't know. But I knew this moment mattered. More than the job. More than the pride. More than the embarrassment. Because boys don't learn how to be men from lectures. They learn from observation. And right now, he was watching. You always tell me it's okay to talk when something sucks, he said. I exhaled slowly. Yeah. So, I guess it's okay for you too. That hit harder than the demotion. Because he was right. I had told him that for years. After bad games. After friend drama. After middle school heartbreak. It's okay to feel it. But I never modeled it. Until now. I wiped my face with the heel of my hand. I'm not quitting, I said. I'm not falling apart. I just needed a minute. He nodded. Yeah. Then he did something I didn't expect. He leaned his shoulder into mine. Not a hug. Not dramatic. Just contact. Solid. Present. And I felt something shift. Not weakness. Not shame. Connection. That night at dinner, I told Megan the truth. Not the filtered version. The real one. About the demotion. About how it made me feel. She didn't panic. Didn't criticize. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. We'll figure it out, she said. Not, you'll figure it out. We. That word mattered. Later that night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling. My face still felt raw from earlier. But my chest felt lighter. Because something had cracked open. Not my authority. Not my masculinity. The illusion. The illusion that strength means silence. The illusion that fathers can't bleed emotionally. The illusion that vulnerability equals weakness. My son saw me cry, and the world didn't collapse. In fact, something stronger formed. Respect. Trust. Permission. But here's the part I'm still wrestling with. If I hadn't been caught in that moment, would I have ever chosen honesty on my own? Or would I have buried it like every other fear before? That question lingers. Because men don't usually change until something forces them to. And that afternoon, a 13-year-old boy forced me to confront the version of man I was becoming. Distant. Silent. Performative. I don't want him to inherit that. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if this job setback is temporary or permanent. I don't know if I'll rebuild, pivot, or fall further. But I do know this. My son saw me human. Not heroic. Not invincible. Human. And maybe that's more powerful. Because the truth is, men cry. We just wait until no one is looking. And that day, someone was. The morning after my son saw me cry felt different. Not heavy. Not dramatic. Just exposed. Like a window had been opened in a room I'd kept sealed for years. I expected awkwardness at breakfast. Avoided eye contact. Short answers. Teenage retreat. Instead, Ethan walked into the kitchen, grabbed a bowl, and said, "You good today?" Not sarcastic. Not teasing. Checking in. The same way I always checked in on him. "Yeah," I said. And this time it wasn't a lie. Better. He nodded like that was enough. And something about that exchange unsettled me. Because he wasn't uncomfortable. I was. At work, the new dynamic had already begun. My team was smaller. My authority reduced. Meetings I used to lead were now invitations I attended. No one said anything outright. But you can feel it when the room shifts. The subtle recalibration of respect. The polite redirection of eye contact. The way younger managers speak just a little slower to you. Like they're cushioning something. I hated how much it bothered me. I told myself I didn't care about titles. But that wasn't true. Men tie identity to competence more than we admit. When competence is questioned, it feels personal, not professional. And I realized something uncomfortable. I had built my self-worth on external stability. Job title, income, authority. When that structure wobbled, so did I. Around 2 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. Game at 6. You coming? I stared at the screen longer than necessary. There were days in the past when I'd sent back, running late. Might miss first quarter. Because meetings felt urgent. Emails felt important. Tonight, Nothing felt more important than showing up. "I'll be there," I replied, and I meant it. The gym smelled like sweat and rubber flooring. Middle school basketball. Chaotic, loud, imperfect. I found a seat in the bleachers. Ethan spotted me during warm-ups. He didn't wave dramatically, just gave a small nod. Acknowledgement. That nod meant more than any corporate recognition I'd ever received. The game started rough. He missed 2 shots early. In the past, I would have analyzed his form afterward, offered corrections, performance feedback disguised as encouragement. But something in me shifted after that bedroom moment. I didn't want him to feel like love was tied to output. So when he glanced at me after a missed layup, I didn't make a coaching gesture. I just clapped and smiled. "Keep going. That's it." At halftime, he sat next to me on the bleachers, breathing hard. "Coach says I rush," he muttered. "Do you?" I asked. "Yeah." I nodded. "Then slow down." He looked at me. "That's it." I shrugged. Sometimes the fix isn't complicated. He studied my face like he was measuring something. Maybe he was. Maybe he was seeing whether I meant more than basketball. "Slow down. Don't panic. Don't define yourself by one rough stretch." He played better in the second half. They still lost. But he didn't hang his head walking to the car. That was new. Usually he replayed every mistake out loud. Tonight, he was quiet, but not defeated. Halfway home, he said something that caught me off guard. "Do you think it's bad that I saw you cry?" The question hung between us. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. "No," I said carefully. "Do you?" He shrugged. "I didn't know dads did that." There it was. The mythology. Dads are solid. Dads are steady. Dads don't crack. "I don't do it often," I admitted. "But yeah, we do." He nodded slowly. "Did it make you feel weak?" I thought about that. Yesterday, yes. Today? No. I said honestly. It made me feel honest. He absorbed that quietly, and I realized something profound. This wasn't just about him seeing me cry. It was about redefining what strength looked like in our house. That night, after he went to bed, Megan and I sat on the couch. "You handled that well," she said softly. "You mean the breakdown?" I half joked. "I mean letting him see you." I exhaled. I didn't let him. He walked in. "Still," she said, "most men would have shut it down. Told him everything's fine." She wasn't wrong. That was my instinct. Protect the image. Maintain the illusion. But what if the illusion is the problem? What if I don't want him growing up thinking he has to hide everything? I said. She looked at me differently then. Not with pity. With respect. Over the next few weeks, something subtle shifted between me and Ethan. He started talking more. Not dramatically, but consistently. About a kid at school who'd been giving him a hard time. About feeling nervous before presentations. About worrying he wasn't big enough compared to other boys. Before, I might have responded with solutions. Fight back. Lift weights. Ignore it. Now I ask questions. How does that make you feel? What do you think you should do? I wasn't trying to be a therapist. I was trying to be present. Because I understood something now. If I shut down my own emotions, I was teaching him to shut down his. And I don't want him 40 years old, sitting in a parked truck, wondering when he disappeared. Work didn't magically improve. In fact, some days felt worse. I had to swallow pride regularly, adjust to less control, take direction from people who once deferred to me. But strangely, it didn't destroy me the way I thought it would, because my identity was no longer resting solely there. When Ethan asked about my day, I told him the truth. Challenging, frustrating, learning to adapt. And each time I said it out loud, it lost a little power over me. One Saturday morning, we were in the garage cleaning out old boxes. He found a framed photo of me in my 20s. Lean, confident, standing next to my first car. "You look different," he said. "Yeah," I laughed. "I was your age once." He squinted at the picture. "You look kind of nervous." That surprised me. Nervous? Yeah, like you're pretending not to be. I stared at the photo longer than I expected. He wasn't wrong. I remembered that version of myself. Trying to look fearless. Trying to look like I had it figured out. Maybe I've been pretending longer than I realized. Later that day, he asked if we could shoot hoops in the driveway. We played one-on-one until we were both sweating. At one point, he drove past me and scored. Then looked back, grinning. "You're slowing down, old man." I laughed. Maybe, but it didn't sting. Aging didn't feel like failure in that moment. It felt like progression, like phases, like evolution. Here's what I didn't expect. The more honest I became with my son, the stronger I felt, not weaker. Because vulnerability wasn't erasing authority. It was deepening trust. He didn't see me as fragile. He saw me as real. And real is harder to dismiss than perfect. One evening, as we sat on the porch, he said something quietly. "I'm kind of glad I saw you cry." I looked at him. Why? Because now I know it's not just me. That sentence settled deep. Because that's the secret fear boys carry. That they're the only ones who feel unsure. The only ones who get scared. The only ones who don't always feel enough. The only ones who don't always feel enough. If my tear gave him permission to be human, then maybe it was worth it. I don't know what challenges are ahead. Career changes. Financial shifts. Aging parents. Life doesn't stabilize permanently. But I know this. The day my son saw me, cry didn't reduce me in his eyes. It expanded me. And maybe that's what real strength is. Not the absence of emotion, but the courage to let someone witness it. There's still something I haven't told him, though. Something I'm still learning myself. Because being honest once doesn't mean the work is done. It just means the door is open. And what walks through next might change both of us. A month after the day Ethan saw me cry, I was called into another meeting. This time, it wasn't framed as restructuring. It was simpler. Budget cuts. Consolidation. Position eliminated. They offered a severance package. Handshakes. Polite regret. I walked out of the building carrying a small cardboard box. 15 years reduced to framed photos and a coffee mug with my name on it. Oddly, I didn't feel the same collapse I had weeks earlier. The fear was still there, but it wasn't suffocating, because something inside me had shifted. My job was gone, but I wasn't. Driving home felt surreal. Middle of the day. Sun too bright. Traffic too normal. I thought about stopping somewhere to sit alone, to process, to rehearse how I would tell Megan. But I didn't. I drove straight home, because I didn't want my first instinct to be isolation anymore. Megan was in the kitchen when I walked in. She saw the box before she saw my face. "Oh," she said softly. I nodded. It happened. She didn't ask for details. She walked over and hugged me. No panic. No blame. No immediate financial calculations. Just contact. "We'll figure it out," she said again. That word, we, it steadied me. The harder conversation came later that afternoon. Ethan got home from school around 3:40. He dropped his backpack by the stairs and walked into the kitchen. "Why are you home?" I looked at him, and I didn't sugarcoat it. "I lost my job today." His face shifted, not into fear, into attention. "Oh," that was it at first. Just "oh." He stepped closer. "Are you okay?" It struck me that he wasn't asking about money or status. He was asking about me. "I'm disappointed," I said honestly, "but I'm okay." He studied me like he did that day in the bedroom, like he was checking for cracks. "You gonna cry again?" he asked, half smiling. There was no mockery in it, just curiosity. "Maybe later," I said, and we both laughed. That night, I did cry again, not because I felt destroyed, but because letting go of 15 years hurts. And I didn't do it in secret. I sat at the kitchen table after dinner, staring at the severance paperwork. The weight settled in slowly. Uncertainty. Pride bruised. Future unclear. Ethan walked in for water. He paused when he saw me. I didn't hide my face. Didn't straighten up. Didn't pretend. He walked over and leaned against the counter. "You scared?" he asked. "Yeah," I admitted. He nodded. "Me too." That surprised me. "Why you?" He shrugged. "Because when stuff changes, it's weird." That was it. Not complex. Just honest. Change is weird. Scary. Unsettling. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to shield him from that reality. I was letting him see how adults navigate it. Not perfectly, but honestly. Over the next few weeks, our house felt different. Tighter financially. Looser emotionally. I updated my resume. Sent applications. Made calls. Some days I felt confident. Other days I questioned everything. But here's what surprised me. I wasn't ashamed in front of my son, because I had already shown him something more vulnerable than unemployment. I had shown him fear, and survived it. One afternoon, he came home frustrated. He tried out for a select travel team and didn't make it. He threw his bag down harder than usual. They said I need more size, he muttered. I could see it in his face. That familiar sting of rejection. The exact feeling I had walking out of my office weeks earlier. I sat next to him on the couch. That sucks, I said. He blinked. Yeah. We sat in silence for a moment. Then he asked, does it feel like that? When you lose something big? I nodded slowly. Yeah, exactly like that. He exhaled. Feels like maybe I'm just not enough. That sentence hit deep, because that was the sentence I hadn't been able to articulate about my job. I turned to him. You are enough, I said. And so am I. Sometimes things just don't line up. He looked unconvinced. Then why does it feel like failure? I thought carefully. Because we tie who we are to what we do. He absorbed that. Should we? I smiled faintly. I'm learning not to. Weeks passed. No immediate job offer. Savings shrinking. Routine shifting. But something else was growing. Conversations. Honesty. Shared uncertainty. One evening, Ethan and I were shooting hoops again. He drove past me easily. He was getting quicker. After scoring, he looked at me and said, "You don't look stressed." I am, I admitted. But I'm not hiding it. He nodded like that made sense. Then he said something I'll never forget. I think you're braver now. I laughed lightly. Braver? I lost my job. Yeah, he said. But you didn't pretend it didn't hurt. That stopped me. Because for most of my life, I thought bravery was absorbing pain silently. Apparently, to a 13-year-old boy, bravery looked different. It looked like honesty. A month later, I accepted a new position. Different company. Slightly lower pay. Less prestige. More flexibility. When I told Ethan, he grinned. See, you didn't disappear. That word. Disappear. He didn't know how close I'd come to that years ago in other ways. Emotionally. Internally. But he sensed something. Kids always do. On my first day at the new job, I stood in front of the mirror longer than usual. Not adjusting my tie. Just looking. I didn't see a man diminished. I saw a man recalibrated. A man who understood that strength isn't rigid. It bends. It adapts. It speaks. Before I left the house, Ethan called out from the hallway. Hey, Dad. Yeah. If today sucks, you can tell me. I smiled. Deal. Here's what I know now. The day my son saw me cry wasn't a crack in my authority. It was the beginning of trust. The day I lost my job wasn't proof of failure. It was proof that identity needs deeper roots than titles. And the man my son will remember won't be the one who never broke. He'll remember the one who didn't lie about breaking. He'll remember the one who chose honesty over image. The one who said, I'm scared, and kept moving anyway. Men cry. Men doubt. Men lose. But we don't have to do it in silence. Because silence doesn't build strength. Connection does. And if one day my son is sitting in his own driveway, feeling like something inside him just collapsed, I hope he doesn't hide it. I hope he remembers that his father once cried and stood back up. Not invincible. Not flawless. Just human. And that was enough.